In this video, I will walk you through how to create a simple WCF service using Visual Studio 2012. To begin, let's create a new project, and let's grab the web type and say WCF, and we will create a WCF service application. Let's call this service Math Service 1, and I will create this in a folder called Projects WCF. This will give us a basic WCF service application template. So here we have two files that are important to our service. The first one being the service 1.svc, and the other one is the iService 1.cs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another service, new item, and call this WCF Service, and we'll call this Math Service. And so this is my new service that I just created right here, and I don't really need the service 1, so I'm going to delete that. So I also don't need this guy here, so I'm going to delete that as well. So here we are with a clean canvas here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a simple multiplication, addition, subtraction, and division service. So here I'm going to specify the return type as integer 32, and I'm going to call this add. So let's copy this a couple more times, and I'll call this subtract, multiply, and divide. So these are the basic operations that I want to provide for my service. So here I'm just going to copy this over, and let's remove the attributes because we don't need that, and the semicolon, and let's make these functions. Okay, so those are my basic functions, and here of course I need to have two numbers. So integer 32, I'm going to call this number 1, integer 32, number 2. I'm going to do the same for all the other ones. Let's go over and actually match these parameters on this function right here. So all I have to now do is return number 1 plus number 2. And here I need to return number 1 minus number 2. And in the interest of time, multiply and divide. And multiply and divide. Okay? So, this is pretty much our service here. So, let's create an application that will actually consume our service here. So, first, before we do that, let's get rid of this disclaimer up here. Don't need that. So, and neither do we need this guy right here. Alright, so let's build solution to make sure that it runs correctly, and it does not. So what is the problem here? So the only thing that we forgot here is to make these public. So let's make them public. So rebuild. Let's see if it goes away, and it does. Successful. Okay, great. So the next thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add a new project. I'm going to add a Windows application, Windows Form application to be exact, and I'm going to call this Math Service Test App 1. So let's add some controls on here. So in the interest of time, I'm going to drag and drop 2 text boxes and 2 labels. And 2. And we will call these number 1 and number 2. And we will call the text box txt num1 and txt num2. And I'm also going to drag a combo box here, and under items, and actually under collection, and items collection right here, I'm going to say add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Okay, and we also need a button. And we will call this btn calc, and we will give it a label calculate. Okay, so we'll call this combo CBO action type, or let's call it CBO operation. So here we now have a whole bunch of if statements if we want. So you can say if CBO operation dot text equals to add, else if CBO operation dot text equals to subtract, else if CBO operation dot text equal to multiply, else well, we don't really need anything else. Let's just say else. Alright, so here we now need to add a reference. Here, let's set our application, the test application, as a startup project, and let's add a reference here to a service. And I'm just going to hit discover here just so that it detects our math service right here. Alright, so it detected it, and we'll just call this math service. Math service 1, and say OK. Okay, so now we have a reference to our service called math service 1. So let's add a reference up here using math test app 1 dot math service 1, which will give us a reference to our service. So let's create a client here, math service client. I'll just call that hello client equals to new math service client. Okay, so if the operation text is add, then we will do something here. So let's also add another text box here and call it well, we can add it down here, and we will call that result. txt result, so that we can put the result of our operation in it. So over here, if the operation type is add, then I'm going to use the client object dot add, and I'm going to say convert. Well, actually, let's keep it a little bit cleaner than this. Let's first create two numbers, hello integer 32 hello num1 equals to 0, integer 32 hello num2 equals to 0. And well, actually, instead of doing that, let's do convert dot to integer 32 txt number1 dot text dot trim. Well, and the same for this guy here, and we'll call this number 2. So now we've got the two numbers. We've read them in from the text box. So txt result dot text equals to hello client dot add, and this is hello num1 dot num comma hello 2, comma. Okay. And we'll say dot to string so that we can display it. Okay. And really, the rest of these guys will do the same thing, except this guy here will be doing subtract. This guy here will be doing multiply, and this guy here will be doing divide. So here we are. Alright, so let's put a breakpoint here and run it to see what we get. Okay, so here is our application. I'm going to say 10 for the first number and 5 for the second number, and I'm going to say add, and I'm going to say calculate here. So it'll go through, and if we step through here, so now we've got 10 for number 1, 5 for number 2, and it was an add operation, so it goes in this node here. And I'm going to hit F11 to step through to the actual service, and here it will take number 1 and number 2, and it returns the result to me. And that's really it. It exits then, and it gives us the result down here. So the exact same thing would be true for any of the other service calls. For example, if I subtract, now it will go through and it will subtract, and it will give us the result of 5. And if I multiply again, it gives us 50 now. And if we divide, it will give us 2. Now, of course, I haven't added any validations yet, but this is the basics of how to create a WCF service. So let's review this one more time and what we did. So first, we in the interface, we created a whole bunch of operation contracts with the return type, and this is an actual interface. So all you have to specify is the return type, the name of the method, and the parameters that will be passed in. And here we created those methods and exposed them publicly so that we can perform the operations. And in our test application, we reference the service, and we first of all we referenced it, added a using statement, and then we created a client and consumed the service and obtained the result. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Please subscribe and leave any comments you may have, and stay tuned for part 2. Thank you.